Hello, Scott here, and welcome to A Pull from the Shelf. This is a series where I spotlight a book, adventure, or supplement from my library that I haven't really spent any time with, take a deep dive into it, and discover what's inside along with you. It is a cold and overcast day in Southern California, so I am, wearing my warm jacket here. I'm also still on holiday and can't be bothered to do my hair today, so I'm wearing my dusty, dirty Angels baseball cap. And so if I look a little disheveled, there you go. It still falls in line with my completely unprofessional thing. Yeah, what you're looking at here is called the Complete Warlock. With the current kerfuffle with the OGL thing and the changing of it with the coming one D&D, and likewise, this has been a debate for some time now regarding certain changes within the open game license. It got me thinking about how did some of these games exist in the past, and do I have any of those? Some that essentially latched on to the AD&D popularity in the late 70s, early 80s, before TSR started their litigious actions against so many people. And come to find out that I actually do have something, and with that, something extremely rare, the Complete Warlock. So a little bit history about this particular book here is I picked it up at Strategicon a few years ago. It was being sold with some other old school Dragon magazines and whatnot. And even at the time, it carried a bit of value to it. And the person selling it, was willing to let it go for a song, thankfully. And so I never really took a look at it after the fact. I'm guilty of that. I am a RPG collector. And a lot of times I will purchase things that I plan on getting to. Unfortunately, time and life permitting, those things sometimes happen, sometimes they don't. But my immediate page through of this is I had assumed that the Complete Warlock was nothing more than a unauthorized reference book, because it carried things such as character creation, experience tables, different descriptions and spells within there. But with the little OGL revelation that I was wondering if I had something of it, I just started looking through this. Come to find out that this here is not what I thought it was. It is actually its own game. It is a game that is a derivative of original Dungeons and Dragons. It was published in 1978. And what it did is very similar to other, pioneers, I think we'll call them, such as the Ardenwen Grimoire and whatnot. It took what the original concept of original D&D was, and put their spin on it, like many people tend to do today in the OSR. But this was before there was any sort of game license to adhere to and worry about. And so, So after I discovered that, I went, well, let's take a look at this. Let's make this a topic of a pull from the shelf and see what's inside and how much of a different take that these particular authors felt was necessary to make a more enjoyable Dungeons & Dragons game. So as you can see here on the cover, there seems to be a kind of an odd black and white picture of a dragon coming out of what's safe to assume is some sort of maybe lava or the abyss. Some sort of wizard here on top of this tower of stone, and some ink splotches to denote magic going on, and the 3-colored background behind it. And a little side note: come to find out that this 3-colored background, this kind of red, orange, yellowish green, is the most rare one there is. So this thing is pretty valuable. I keep it inside a sealed bag and boarded, and have it on my shelf when I'm not reading it. So, diving in, here we go. So, copyright 1978 by Balboa Game Company, all rights reserved. Here it is noted, Dungeons & Dragons, the game, is a creation of and copyrighted by TSR Incorporated. So, at the time, I would imagine several people decided that this was okay and well enough to get by. And, of course, when TSR usually found out about these things, the lawsuits came thereafter, or maybe cease and desist. And then potentially, the litigious lawsuits came later, as this was still 1978. We have credits by Robert Cohen, who designed the basic combat system, Dave Clark, who designed the basic magic system. We have Kenneth M. Dahl, basic clerical and thievish systems. We have Nick Smith, who was in charge of text and development and other systems and rules. Cover art is by Tim Finkus. Interior logos by Adele R. Bass. It was playtested, and playtests and ongoing suggestions are courtesy of the Caltech Gamers and the Pasadena Playtest Group. So this was a local group, me living in Southern California. All right, so going in. So there we are. We've got our first look at the first bit of print on here, and yes, it is dense. Not as dense as many other games, but this is kind of the standard for the time. Things were just compacted. We have a 3-column format here, and no room for artwork, just information. So let's take a look what it says. Warlock, a major D&D variant. An introduction. A few years ago, the first copies of a new game called Dungeons & Dragons appeared on the market. Fantasy fans and gamers in general were enthralled at the possibilities. Most of them became hooked on the game due to its unusual and imaginative nature. You could actually do unusual things, slay dragons, rescue the downtrodden, and just grab loot. When our group first started playing the game, our overall reaction was that it had great ideas. But maybe we should change the combat system, clarify the magic, and redo the monsters. Yes. So there you go. 1978, a very, I would say a very OSR point of view. Let's make some changes here and clarify some things. Let's clean it up. Continuing on, Warlock is not intended to replace D&D, and indeed would not exist without the classic game. What we have tried to do is to present a way of expanding D&D without the contradictions, sound familiar, and loopholes inherent in the original rules and various supplements. By putting together one set of rule changes and interpretations and playing by them for 3 years, we have developed something that works pretty well. We spent a considerable amount of time working on a solid combat system, a coherent magic system, and a more flexible way of handling monsters as monsters rather than as men dressed up in gorilla suits. We have been rightly, and this is, rightly, accused of making D&D into a different game altogether. But what we think it is an enjoyable one. There you go. And we hope you do as well. We recommend that you have access to a Dungeons & Dragons set, preferably a copy of the original version. Preferably. I don't know if there was any other version, so you can put 2 and 2 together. Plus any supplements you enjoyed. We lack the space to go into the detail supplied by the D&D rules in some areas, such as magic items, and the basic monsters, as well as how to design a dungeon or other game location. We will be going into some of this in a separate book for referees, but not here. Interesting. I have no idea if they came out with a referee book. That'd be something to look up. So there you go. So yes, they thought that was okay, and many people still think it is okay to this day, and that's a debate that I'm not here to get into. But with that said, yeah. So right off the bat, we thought, according to these people, that D&D was a great game. There was some room for improvement, and we took 3 years to test it out, and we feel that it was something good enough to publish and share with you all in order to make D&D a more enjoyable game. Again, sounds very familiar. Sounds like a conversation that could be going on this very day, let alone way back in 1978. So it goes on to talk about things like what you need to play. Let's see here. You also need dice, so on and so forth. Other things are papers and pencils for mapping. Our group also uses miniatures, and it is possible to spend a lot of money playing the game, but not at all necessary. Let your budget be your guide. Again, a call to simplicity from 1978 that still is being heralded today. D&D is and continues to be an expensive game, but it doesn't have to be. Terms to understand, it goes on to describe things such as player character. Let's see what their term of the player character was for this book in 1978. This is what represents you in the game. They are the equivalent of playing pieces in most games and much more. Your characters will take on personalities of their own. And if you let them and provide you with much enjoyment, they are the adventurers, the people who actually do things uh, in the world of your referee, but are controlled by players. We suggest that you have only a small number of player characters per player. In our game, we allow any player to involve any two of his characters in any one adventure or expedition. Okay, interesting. Whether these player characters are fighters or elves, clerics or dwarves, remember that in their own world, they are people and treat them accordingly. Okay, so it goes on to describe the characteristics, which it looks like that they have changed somewhat. We have strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, agility, charisma, and size. These are called characteristics. See the rules on creating player characters for more. Then it goes on to describe a prime requisite and player characters. Again, each player is represented in the game by one or more player characters, which he must create and maintain. If one or more of the player characters are killed or otherwise eliminated from play, a player must either 1. Find a way to recover the old character by magical or other means explained later, or 2. Create new characters to replace the old. The following types of player characters are what we recommend you use in your games as normal characters. All right, so what do they have? We have fighters. Fighters are tough, strong men or women who specialize in combat and cannot use any magical or clerical spells by themselves. They can use magical or normal. They can use any weapon of a normal or magical nature unless noted otherwise. Fighters tend to be much harder to kill than other types too, since the number of hit points they can take increases more rapidly than for any other character type. Fighters may wear any armor that is their own size, although heavy armor may hamper their fighting, as explained later. Their prime requisite is strength. Let me go on. Clerics. Clerics are religious men or women who are able to call upon their deity or gods for help in the form of clerical spells. They may use fewer magical items than can magic users, but fewer weapons than fighters, but have certain special items of their own. Clerics may wear any armor that they find comfortable and convenient. They may only use weapons that are not designed to shed blood, fists, quarterstaves, maces, and so on, and thus may not use swords or arrows. Clerics may use certain special consecrated items that enhance their own abilities, such as clerical staves. The prime requisite of a cleric is wisdom, and they must have a 9 or greater to be a cleric. All right. Next up is magic users. These are men who have studied magic and are able to throw spells. They may use any magical item not specifically forbidden to them, such as armor and most weapons, and may arm themselves only with daggers or magical swords or staves. So there we go. There's a major change here. Swords. From a D&D perspective, I don't think magic users were able to use swords until 2nd edition. And if I say that correctly, please don't yell at me. But I could be wrong. Anyways, as a basic class. Non-magical staves or tools or to defend themselves by parrying. Let's see here. Sorry, I lost my place. Magic users may carry non-magical staves as tools or to defend themselves by parrying, explaining combat rules, but may not use a non-magical staff as a weapon for attack. Interesting. Okay, so may arm themselves only with daggers or magical swords or staves. Magic users may carry non-magical staves as tools or to defend themselves, but may not use a non-magical stave as a weapon for attack. Interesting. A normal magic user is not permitted armor of any kind or shields. As magic users progress in levels and gain experience, they are able to learn more and higher spells and gain greater ability to use the spells. Prime requisite of magic users' intelligence must be 9 or greater. Okay. Illusionists. Illusionists are a special class of magic users who study and use the art of illusion. They have the same basic restrictions as magic users, but use a somewhat different mixture of magical spells. The prime requisite of the illusionist is intelligence. A character must have an intelligence of 15 or greater, and both wisdom and dexterity of 13 or greater to be an illusionist. Wow. Going on, dwarves. Dwarves tend to be smaller than men, but they make up for their size by being particularly resistant to fatigue and magic. These differences are noted in the appropriate sections. In most other respects, they are much like fighters, except for the following. 1, they are the only characters able to fully employ the more powerful dwarf-made weapons. Oh, okay. They are more likely to notice slanting passages, traps, shifting walls, and new construction in underground settings. Remember this was original D&D, primarily dungeon crawls were the focus, so this was definitely something that you would want in your party if possible. They are much more likely than other characters to know their way around underground settings without getting lost or not noticing how deep they are. They're able to judge the value of gems and jewelry without extensive testing. The prime requisite of a dwarf is the average of his strength and constitution. A character must have strength of 15 or greater and constitution of 15 or greater to be a dwarf. Interesting. Elves. Elves have the ability to use weapons as fighters do, but they are also able to use magic spells. In fact, elves can do everything that magic users and fighters can do. Whenever there is a conflict between what the two types can do in the rules, elves gain the benefit of whichever is to their advantage overall. Okay, so yeah. Why not both? They have the disadvantage that they do not go up in levels as quickly as humans do. Elves are also more likely to find hidden doors and other objects than are most other characters. They are very good at learning languages. Excuse me. Ooh. Got to scratch my throat. There we are. Let's see. They're very good at learning languages. The prime requisites of an elf are strength and intelligence, whichever is lower. Okay. The prime requisite of an elf are strength and intelligence, whichever is the lower. All right. The character must have strength of 9 or greater, intelligence of 9 or greater, a sum of strength plus intelligence of 25 or greater, and dexterity of 11 or greater to be an elf. Okay, those interesting requirements. Carrying on. Halflings. Halflings tend to be only about 1/2 the size of the average man in height, but for their size, they are the toughest characters in the game. I want to say that right there has probably carried on through not just D&D, but many games. You never underestimate the Hobbit. I mean halflings. Dwarves being somewhat larger. They have the same basic limitations as fighters in what they may wear and use. Common sense should be used when there is any doubt. For example, a halfling does not use a longbow effectively and should not be allowed to. Yeah. Should a halfling be able to wield a two-handed Zweihander, even if he may or may not have the strength requirement? Whatever. Each to their own, but yeah, common sense. Common sense should prevail in most games. A halfling is at his best while outdoors or in places similar to their own homes. Forests and glades. The prime requisite of a halfling is either constitution or dexterity, whichever is lower. Okay, there's that weird thing again, whichever is lower. A character must have constitution of 15 or more, dexterity of 15 or more, and agility of 9 or more to be a halfling. A halfling gains special abilities similar to those of a thief as he goes up levels. All right, so we've got a couple more here. We've got thieves. Thieves are men who have perfected the arts of stealth, agility, and lockpicking to a fine degree. They are able to get into places where other characters would find it difficult or dangerous to go. In order to use these abilities, however, thieves must wear no armor. Oh, no armor. There should be a comma there. No, I should read on. No armor more encumbering than leather. There we go. See, I should finish the sentence. The prime requisites of a thief are dexterity and agility. Sorry, I lost my place. Let's see. And our dexterity and agility with experience bonuses determined by the lower of the two. A thief gains abilities as he increases in levels. See thief section later in the rules. A character must have dexterity of 9 or greater, agility of 9 or greater, and a sum of dexterity plus agility of 25 or greater in order to be a thief. So I'm curious, and maybe someone can enlighten me, after this video comes out. I'm kind of curious why they would have the prime requisite be something that is the lower of the two. If someone knows why, feel free to enlighten me. I would appreciate it. This is a character class loosely based on the Rangers. Rangers. This is a character class loosely based on the Wandering Loner characters in fantasy. This character class is primarily a fighting one, but who can gain enough knowledge to make use of a little magic eventually and enough respect for the ruling deities that they can gain a little clerical ability eventually. They are better than average fighters and have the same restrictions as fighters, with the exception that rangers who are 8th level or lower may not own any property. Magical or not, that is not portable enough to be carried along with the ranger on one horse. So get yourself a big horse. There is a special section of rules for rangers later. The prime characteristic of a ranger is, I'm sure this is going to be interesting, is strength. A character must have strength of 17 or more. Woof. Constitution of 15 or more, and intelligence and wisdom both of 13 or more in order to be a ranger. All right, and finally we have paladins. So I'm sure this is going to be another one. This is a character class loosely based on the idea of the chivalric knight from the legends of King Arthur and others. There are fighters with a few of the abilities of a cleric and the ability to use clerical implements and swords which have been consecrated to their own faith. A paladin must adhere completely to the rules of his faith or lose all special abilities and become a normal fighter. See paladin rules. The prime requisite of a paladin is strength. A character must have strength of 13 or more, wisdom of 13 or more, and charisma of 17 or more to be a paladin. All right. Well, I mean, paladins always... I don't have an encyclopedic mind of how every requirement was for every edition, but paladins have been notoriously hard to start depending on the abilities required. So, and that's what made them special. Combination characters. It is possible for a character to be more than one type of character. If a character has a score of 17 or better in the prime requisites of 2 or even 3 of the character types that can combine fighter, cleric, magic user, thief, then he can become a dual or triple character type. A character with scores of 17 or better in both strength and intelligence could become a magical fighter. As an example, as such, he would gain the abilities of both types like an elf, but would advance on a different experience table for this type. See experience tables for examples. The prime requisite of a combination character is the lowest of the two types. Dwarves and elves may only be combination thieves. An elf may be a combination elvish thief if he has strength of 15 or more, intelligence of 15 or more, dexterity of 15 or more, and agility of 15 or more. A dwarf may be a combination dwarvish thief if he has a strength, constitution, dexterity, and agility all of 15 or more. These types all have special advancement tables. Okay, so there you go. So they still had racist class, within this edition, but they did give you opportunities, depending if you happen to roll exceptionally well, to combine them if you wanted to, with some restrictions here, but still, it still gave you options depending on the luck of the roll. All right, so next we go into a description of experience points here. They give you details of monster levels along with the experience points that they provided. I don't really think there's much there that's going to be new. Experience levels. And, okay, carrying on. So time and movement. It is suggested that you use the following set of scales of time and movement for maximum enjoyment of a game. Okay, this should be interesting. 1 real day, noon to noon, equals 1 game week. Okay, so 24 hours equals 1 game week. This allows you to play more than one expedition or adventure in a real day, and also allows expeditions that take more than 1 day of the character's time without having to come back to the next real day to continue. Okay. 1 real inch equals 6 game feet or 2 meters. Okay. This allows you to use miniature figures, either the Airfix plastic ones or the mini LED ones, to set up the physical positions of characters so that players and referee can see what is going on and visualize the action. When inches are referred to in these rules, there are meant to be 6-foot inches. All right. In a dungeon or other similar situation, a turn equals 1 minute of game time. The length of a turn is used for movement, magic, and any other case where a game turn is referred to unless it is stated otherwise. Each game turn consists of 6 phases of 10 seconds each. Each phase is broken down into 3 basic parts. Movement, magic, and archery. Okay, movement, magic, and archery, and melee. And that continues to this day for a lot of games. It is not necessary to keep track of or operate in phases except when encounters or combat occurs, rather than just walking around. The parts take place in the above order during any individual phase. First, all characters in the situation move to any new positions as allowed by the referee. Then, any magical spells are thrown and any archery fired. This step includes the use of any magical implements other than weapons or armor in most cases. Finally comes melee, with hand-to-hand combat being resolved. While seeming complex, after the first couple of times the system is used, the order will become familiar and easy to remember, for most. Since the precise order in which spells and archery are fired often make a difference in a battle, we have introduced a system which gives those with a higher dexterity a chance to fire first, without making the slower ones always lose. This is the dexterity count system. All right, let's see. So on any given phase of actions, the referee asks the players what action each character is taking and also determines the actions of the monsters. If either or both are firing magic or archery, the referee checks to determine who is going to fire first. This is done by having each character or monster roll 2 six-sided dice and adding the results to their current dexterity, whether natural or magically enhanced. That is when that character or being will start to fire. In the case of a bow, that is when the arrow leaves a bowstring. Oh, God, excuse me. In the case of a magic user or cleric casting a spell, it is when the spell starts to be cast. This is also the case for magical implements being fired, rings, wands, or whatever. Since it takes time for a spell to be cast, arrows are often in flight before magic. The precise amount of delay is as follows. All right, we are getting into some tabletop RPG math here, I'm sure. So here we go. Each dexterity count is a small fraction of a second. Call it 1/10 for convenience. It takes 1 dexterity count for an arrow or quarrel to travel 3 inches in scale. Okay. A magical spell takes 1 dexterity count for every spell point the spell costs the caster to go off. A clerical spell takes 1 dexterity count for each level of the spell, i.e. a second level spell takes 2 counts to go off. A magical wand or staff takes only the time used up by the activation spell, usually 1 or 2, to go off. Most other magic items are fired at the rate of 1 dexterity count per level of the spell being fired by the item. Specifically, spell-storing items go off as they were firing a memorized spell. Okay, example time. Thus, we have a magic user with dexterity of 13. He wants to fire a sleep spell. Okay, kids, you have out your calculators. Get out that abacus. You can take notes. All right, he wants to fire a sleep spell, which costs him 3 spell points. Okay, he rolls a 7 on his 2 dice. Thus, the spell actually goes off at dexterity count 17. 13 plus 7 minus 3. And that is when his targets need to make their saving throws against being put to sleep. Suppose one of his targets was a goblin with a bow 9 inches away from the magic user. The goblin has a dexterity of only 8. However, upon seeing a magic user pointing a finger in his direction, he rolls a 10 on his 2 six-sided dice to determine when he fires. Thus, he fires his arrow at dexterity count 18, 1 count faster than the magic user. Let's see here. The arrow, however, takes 3 counts to reach the magic user. Oh boy. So that spell takes effect while the arrow is still in flight. Wow. Okay. I mean, again, nothing. I'm not really being judgmental. I mean, this is obviously the heyday of the games, and there's still a lot of the wargaming aspects of we are counting for every aspect and measurement within time and movement. But still, wow, God, it's going to take a while. Remember, the higher the dexterity count number, the sooner the firing. For simplicity, really, assume that the melee part of each phase starts at around dexterity count 0, so that whatever you have to do is sort of a countdown. Okay, so kind of reminds me a little bit of strike rank in RuneQuest, but there's no measurement of things flying melee items. It's just you If your dexterity is quicker, you get to go quicker, regardless. We don't account for the travel time of the arrow. Let's see here. The speed of movement of a character is determined by the carrying capacity of the character compared with their current load. If they are carrying more than their capacity, they simply cannot move. So that's where RPG video games got it from. This goddamn book. You just can't move. You're a half an ounce over your limit. Get rid of those rations, otherwise you can't take another step. Anyways, if they are carrying more than their capacity, simply cannot move. If they are carrying less than that maximum, but more than half, they can move at 3 inches per turn or less. From 1/3 to 1/2 capacity, they can move at up to 6 inches per turn. From 1/4 to 1/3 capacity, they can move up to 9 inches per turn. For more than 1/6 to not more than 1/4 capacity, they can move up to 12 inches per turn, and so on, until carrying some items but less than 1/12 of the maximum capacity permits 20 inches per turn movement. Carrying nothing whatsoever allows a normal character to travel at 24 inch per turn. So again, I mean, nothing new about that. I mean, encumbrance is something, and how it, and how it affects movement today is still something utilized not just in D&D, but many games. Obviously simplified, though. These speeds are subject to the maximum speed attainable by man or beast of the type in question. A being that is given a fixed maximum speed does not automatically exceed that just because he isn't carrying anything. Mules and other pack animals trained for carrying can go at their maximum speed with a load no greater than that listed on the weight and cost table. The normal speeds are just that, and are used when walking. In combat or other situations where speed is important, creatures that walk or swim travel at their normal speed, but per phase instead of per turn. Thus, running or swimming quickly is 6 times as fast as normal movement. Flying creatures are somewhat different. Flying creatures move at their listed movement per phase normally and move twice that speed when hurrying or diving. All right, so there you go. Did you get all that? All right, so now we continue on. So the next thing they have here are the various experience tables for the different options you have as classes. So carrying on, we've got fighters. All of these seem to go to, so fighters can go from level 1 to 22 and above, ranging from 0 to 2,040,000. And then halflings can go up to level 12. Dwarves can go up to level 12, continuous 9 and 12 above experience points. Okay, so they can go, so they can go above level 12, continue as 9 through 12 above experience point steps, above 20 are 300. Okay, so it looks like there's no limit. No limit on them. Then we have combinations here, and carrying on. Paladins, rangers, and so on. So yeah. Elvish advancement, going on to level 20. And specifically character. Okay, so spell progressions here. Level 1. I'm curious. Clerics. Yeah. Oh, okay. So clerics in this game didn't necessarily start with no spells. They had 2 level 0 spells. Because first, the beginning editions of Dungeons & Dragons, when you were a cleric, you didn't get to cast anything until 2nd level. And then we have the various saving throws here. So they utilize poison and death, wands, stone, dragon breath, spells, and staves. Yes. What is your saving throw against being stoned? Ha. All right, so, and then they also have special saving throws here. Oh, okay, so we have belief. Interesting. This saving throw applies to all situations involving illusions and phantasms. Okay, where the character might be able to reason out the unreality of the situation. Not what I thought it was going to be. Basically, any character needs to roll a number equal to 21 minus the character's intelligence in order to disbelieve a phantasm or illusion. This may be further adjusted as mentioned in the spell descriptions. Then we have fear. The saving throw applies mainly to situations where a character is hit by a fear spell or an equivalent effect caused by another being or circumstance. Failure to achieve the saving throw means that the character retreats in an uncontrolled manner, checking once per turn thereafter to regain control, using the same saving throw needed. The saving throw is based on the sum of the character's wisdom, judgment, strength, aptitude for combat. Entanglement. This saving throw applies to all situations where the character is in danger of physical entrapment or falling. Okay. It is based on the sum of 2 times agility plus dexterity. The saving throw is used in case of walking over pit traps, under falling nets, or into quicksand, among other cases. Failure to achieve the saving throw results in being caught by whatsoever circumstance necessitated the saving throw. Finally, we have con. The saving throw is for use with the Thievish Con ability. Ooh. The saving throw is based upon the difference between the sum of the thief's intelligence, dexterity, and charisma, and the sum of the victim's intelligence and wisdom. Failure by the victim to achieve the number needed for this particular difference means that he falls for the thief's ploy, probably losing money, or worse, to the con man. Interesting. Okay, we have special rules for elves, paladins, and fighters. Elves have the following bonuses: +1 on archery shots. +1 on archery shots with bows. +1/6 chance of spotting hidden objects. +1/6 chance of not being surprised by unusual circumstances. +1/6 chance of hearing or seeing approaching danger, and the ability to see 50% farther than a normal human in dim light. Not total darkness. Not total darkness. Dim light. Paladins have the following special abilities. A paladin may heal other characters of the same alignment. 2 points for each level the paladin has gained at a rate of 2 points per turn. A paladin may do 1 clerical cure disease spell by touch per day for each 3 levels he has attained. A paladin may do 1 clerical dispel evil per week for each 3 levels he has attained. Starting at 9th level, the touch of a ghoul will not paralyze a paladin, and the touch of a paladin will dispel the paralytic effects of a ghoul. The clerical best and benediction spells have a double effect on a paladin. Fighters. This note also applies to elves, rangers, paladins, and all combination characters that include fighters. Starting at 9th level and each 3rd level thereafter, a fighter gains an extra ability. This ability may be applied to adding 1 attack level per ability to the fighter's attack with 1 type of weapon, i.e., a 9th level fighter may choose to become broadsword +1. It may instead be used to add +1 to the fighter's archery slots with any 1 type of archery weapon. A fighter may apply more than 1 of these abilities to any given weapon to a maximum of +3 per weapon. All right. So we have the effects of characteristics. So regarding your prime requisite, if your prime requisite of the character is 19 or more, he gets a 15% bonus on experience. 15 to 18 is 10, 13 to 14 is 5, 9 to 12, no adjustment. A prime requisite of 7 to 8 subtracts 10 from earned experience. 6 or less subtracts 20. Oh, man. That's harsh. That's harsh. It's funny. I no way in hell I would do that, but it is funny. But mind you, 1978. Come on. Strength, see table for adjustments. Intelligence. For a magic user character, an intelligence of 13 to 15 gives the character an extra 1/2 spell point for each hit die he gets. Spell points. So this game uses spell points. An intelligence of 16 or higher gives the character an extra 1 spell point for each hit die he gets. Wisdom. For a clerical character, wisdom of 13 to 17 gives a character bonus of 1/2 pip per die of healing, or per healing spell, whichever is the greater, and 1/2 per die when rolling to dispel undead, both for quality and for chance to affect them. Excuse me. Wisdom of 18 or greater gives a bonus of +1 per die or healing spell, and +1 per die on dispelling undead. Further, a wisdom of 15 or more gives a cleric a 5% bonus chance of dispelling demons. Oh boy. Constitution of 15 or more gives a character a bonus of 1 hit point per each hit die. Constitution of 6 or less causes a character to lose 1 hit point for each hit die rolled. Yeah, I mean, I know that exists today, but it's still funny. Dexterity. Dexterity of 13 or greater adds +1 to archery skills. Dexterity of 8 or less subtracts negative from archery skills. So they weren't doling out. It was 13 or higher. It wasn't like 13 you get +1, 16 you get +2, 18 you get +3. Agility of 16 or greater adds +1 to defense level character. Agility of 5 or less subtracts negative from the defense level of a character. Finally, size. The size table gives the basic weight of normal human male for purposes of figuring out carrying capacity. For other types, adjust as follows. For elves, after calculation of carrying capacity, determine actual weight by subtracting 2 from rolled size. For dwarves, adjust the same. Let's see here. 2 from roll. For dwarves, adjust the same as elves. For halflings, divide weight by 2 before figuring carrying capacity, but figure capacity as if the character weighed 20 pounds more than the actual weight. For female characters, subtract 20 pounds from the weight before figuring carrying capacity. That is, a female character rolling a size of 12 would actually weigh only 140 pounds on 160. Okay. Hey, that's nice. All right. Okay. Well, again, 1978, no big deal. Carrying capacity of a character is calculated by multiplying the weight of the character by carrying capacity for the character strength, applying any adjustments for the special types of characters stated in the size notes. Thus, a human of strength 18, size 18 would be able to support barely 250 times 3.0 or 750 pounds. He would be able to operate normally, speed 12 movement while carrying no more than 1/4 of this amount, and so on. All right, so yeah, I mean, again, I'm not, kind of pointing out the female aspect of the weight thing. It is. I don't consider this to be like a thing of its time. They're just trying to be, a bit more, generous and saying, females generally weigh less than men, regardless of their size, which is fine. But at least the one thing they didn't do here that I can find is they didn't put any sort of requirements on their abilities, meaning that, a female would not be able to get 18 strength or higher or whatever the case may be. So, carrying on. So we got the equipment here, and we have the size to weight for armor and carrying capacity, bonus and penalty dies due to strength. Holy shit, it goes up to 50? Wow. And then we get into combat. So where are we at here? We are at 42 minutes. So I think this might be a good place to stop so I don't prattle on. And we'll continue on in part 2 if you would like to see more. So if you would like me to continue on with this 1978 homebrew alteration of Dungeons and Dragons, shoot me a message on Twitter. Let me know in the comments. It's not going to take much. Even if one person wants me to continue on, I'll do a part 2. It's no big deal. But just want to make sure before I go through, almost another 40 more pages, which might require a part 3. Just want to make sure people are interested in what this book holds, and finding out with me what actually is inside, and seeing what these people's these persons' interpretation of what they feel D&D should have been back in 1978. So there you go. This has been another pull from the shelf. My name is Scott. I do appreciate you taking the time to come with me as I do a deep dive into these books. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know on Twitter if you have any suggestions, or Mastodon, I'm there too, or wherever else you seem to find this video, or in the description on YouTube. And likewise, be sure and check out the podcast that I co-host with Keith, who is from rollingboxcards.com, called Titterpigs, the tabletop RPG podcast. We are on season 2, and we are going to be doing some more interviews and other things on the podcast coming up here in a week or two. And in closing, also, stay tuned. Sometime this week, hopefully, we will be dropping the video of my lovely wife doing her first critique and comparison between old school tabletop RPG artists and some of the newer ones in comparison. So, one more time, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and happy gaming. Take care.